Some stories begin quietly, in the soft rhythm of an ordinary night, until something impossible tears through reality. Tonight, we follow a woman whose simple walk home becomes the start of an encounter she was never meant to remember, yet will never be able to forget. If you want more deep, cinematic abduction stories, make sure to subscribe before we begin. She had always walked home the same way, down the narrow residential street lined with half-sleeping apartment blocks, their windows glowing like tired eyes watching the world fade into night. And tonight felt no different. Mara held her jacket closed against the cold as the wind rolled in from the sea, carrying the faint scent of salt and something she couldn't name. She checked her phone, saw it was nearly midnight, and slipped it back into her pocket. Her steps were steady, determined, but unhurried. She didn't know that every movement she made was already being watched. It began with the silence, not the normal quiet of a late neighborhood, but a violent absence of sound, like someone had sucked the air out of the world. The distant hum of traffic cut out. A dog that had been barking froze mid-sound, its mouth open but producing nothing. Even the wind stopped, leaving the street suspended in a dead, breathless stillness. Mara slowed. The hair on her arms lifted. Something in her body recognized the wrongness before her mind could. The streetlight above her flickered once, twice, then burst into an almost white glare, drowning the pavement in a sterile glow. She looked up, shielding her eyes, thinking maybe the transformer was failing. But the light wasn't from the lamp. It was descending from the sky. A thin beam, no wider than her shoulders, cut straight down onto her like a spotlight, so clean and geometric it didn't spill a single ray beyond its own boundary. The world outside the beam stayed pitch dark, while inside it everything appeared overexposed, stretched, unreal. Her breath caught in her chest as her body locked up, nerves freezing like she'd been plunged into ice. She tried to step back. Nothing moved. Her fingers twitched, then curled inward against her will. Her knees buckled but didn't fall. She hovered a few millimeters above the pavement, legs stiff, toes no longer touching the ground. Panic roared inside her skull, muted by the unnatural quiet around her. Her heartbeat slammed against her ribs, but even that sound felt muffled, like she was hearing it from underwater. Her phone vibrated once, someone calling her, but the screen light stretched into a line, glitching as if time around her was tearing. The vibration slowed, deepened, then faded entirely as the device froze in her grip. The beam began lifting her, slowly, smoothly, as if gravity had agreed to step aside. Her hair drifted upward, floating around her face like she was drowning in invisible water. She felt her muscles soften, then tighten with a precision that wasn't her own. Her limbs arranged themselves into a posture she didn't choose, arms slightly parted, neck extended, chin angled up toward the blinding source above her. Her tears rose off her face before falling, drifting upward like tiny, shimmering beads. Then the light dimmed, revealing a circular silhouette hovering above, metallic yet organic, with surfaces bending and flowing in ways metal shouldn't. Several openings pulsed around its underside, breathing in slow patterns like the craft itself was alive. Through the center aperture, a darker shape leaned forward, observing her with an intelligence she couldn't comprehend. Something touched her mind. Not a voice, not a word. A pressure soft, curious, and impossibly vast, like an unseen hand brushing against the edges of who she was. It searched her memories with the delicacy of someone touching a sleeping child's hair. She felt herself dissolving, identity thinning, boundaries fading, as the thing sifted through her thoughts. Childhood flashes, arguments with her sister, the warmth of her first love, the quiet sadness she never told anyone she carried. Her body crossed the final few meters into the craft with a liquid smoothness. The beam retracted. The aperture sealed shut behind her with a whisper. The night regained its sound. The dog barked again. The traffic returned. The streetlight flickered once, then settled into its usual dim amber glow. Mara was no longer there. On the pavement, only her phone remained, screen cracked, still frozen on the last call she never answered. Some encounters are violent, others silent, but some arrive like a question the universe asks directly to one person. Tonight's story follows a witness who saw the moment the sky itself seemed to crack open. If you enjoy these cinematic abduction chronicles, make sure you're subscribed before we begin. He had always slept with the window slightly open, just enough to hear the city breathing, cars passing in the distance, the occasional shout, the soft hum of life continuing even as he drifted off. But on this particular night, Ryan woke with the sudden, unmistakable sense that something was staring at him. Not from the window, not from the doorway, from above. His eyes opened into darkness, yet the darkness felt layered like there were shapes hiding inside it. He remained still, breath shallow, heartbeat rising. The air smelled wrong, metallic, charged, like the atmosphere before lightning touches the ground. He sat up slowly, pushing the blanket aside. The moment his feet hit the floor, the silence struck. Not normal silence, the same absolute void that had swallowed Mara Street. Every street noise died at once. The city outside vanished. The world flattened into a soundless vacuum. Ryan's ears rang as if pressure had suddenly changed, but his apartment was sealed tight, the curtains unmoving. He went to the window, and when he pulled the curtains apart, the sky outside was no longer a sky. A hairline fracture, glowing, trembling, ran across the darkness overhead like a crack in glass. It widened with a slow, graceful shudder, revealing a pale, shifting luminescence behind it. Buildings beneath the anomaly flickered with unnatural light, as if their surfaces were being scanned, outlined, redrawn. Then the crack opened, peeling outward like a silent wound. Something enormous moved behind it. A structure, not a craft, not organic, not mechanical, but something that blended all three, slid into view. Its surface rippled like liquid metal shaped into cathedral geometry. Dozens of symmetrical patterns flowed across it, each one illuminating briefly before fading into new configurations. The thing wasn't hovering. It wasn't flying. It was simply there, inserted into his reality like a piece of a different universe forced into the wrong page. Ryan's breath caught in his throat. His knees weakened. A beam extended downward from the structure, but it wasn't light. It was absence, an inverted column of space that swallowed everything it touched. When it reached the roof of the building across from him, the concrete, the vents, the antennas, all began bending and folding inward like origami being undone. His legs moved before his mind did. He stumbled backward, knocking over a lamp. The sound never reached his ears. He ran to the hallway, but the front door shook violently in its frame, locked not by any physical mechanism but by something holding every molecule in place. The air thickened. His vision blurred. Then a shape appeared at the far end of the hallway, tall, slender, not quite humanoid, too elongated, too fluid, as if built from a material that had never earned the right to be solid. Its surface reflected the crackling skylight outside, creating the illusion that fragments of the universe were sliding over its skin. It stepped toward him, each movement seamless, gliding rather than walking. It raised one arm, an arm that stretched into impossible proportions, and Ryan's body snapped into paralysis. His breath froze mid-inhale. His thoughts stuttered, interrupted by a new presence pressing inside his mind. This presence wasn't curious. It wasn't gentle. It was clinical. He felt it examining him, pulling apart layers of memory, emotion, intention, like stripping wires to see what current they carried. His vision flashed white, then black, then flooded with images that weren't his, a field of stars bending like liquid, a world with twin suns hovering above silent oceans, a chamber of observers, dozens of beings identical to the one in front of him, watching lives unfold through luminous windows. Earth, seen from afar, surrounded by faint lattice structures he'd never known existed. His body lifted from the floor, his spine arched. The hallway dissolved into silver haze. When he blinked, he was no longer in his apartment. He hung weightlessly inside a structure shaped like an endless hexagonal tunnel. Every surface shimmered with symbols that rearranged themselves whenever he tried to focus. Rows of tall figures stood on both sides, their heads tilted in unison, studying him the way scientists study a rare insect. They extended their arms. The world dimmed. His consciousness fractured like light hitting crystal. When he woke, he was back in his bed, shirt torn, nose bleeding, and the window open wider than he ever left it. Outside, the sky was normal. No crack, no structure, no silent void. But on the glass of his window, drawn in a thin smear of metallic residue, was a perfect hexagon, identical to the tunnel he had been inside. His phone buzzed beside him. One new memory created timestamp, 02:43 a.m. Message, you were selected. She shot upright, breath sharp and uneven as the sound drilled through her head, no longer a metallic hum but something closer to a melody, impossibly precise, like someone plucking invisible strings inside her skull. Nora pressed her palms hard against her ears. It didn't help. The sound wasn't coming from the room. It was coming from her. She staggered to her feet. The apartment felt off. Shadows stretched in the wrong direction, leaning toward her instead of away. The air pulsed faintly as if the whole room had a heartbeat. She reached for the light switch, but before her fingers touched it, every bulb in the apartment flickered to life on its own, overexposed, colorless, buzzing with a low electrical whine. Then all of them shut off at once. Darkness swallowed the room. The hum in her skull stopped. For a moment, she thought the phenomenon was over, just some neurological glitch, some momentary hallucination brought on by stress. Then she saw the first distortion, a small shimmer in the center of her living room like heat rising from asphalt. It twisted the space behind it, bending the edges of the bookshelf, warping the shadows into spirals. She froze, breath trembling, watching the shimmer grow wider, brighter, deeper, until it formed a vertical slit in reality itself. A hand slipped through, long, translucent, with fingers that tapered into thin, flexible joints that moved like fluid metal. Another hand followed, then an arm, then the outline of a head, featureless at first, then shifting, forming, adjusting like it was searching for a shape that would make sense to her. Nora stumbled back, hitting the kitchen counter. Her phone buzzed violently on the table, lighting up with notifications so fast the screen glowed white. It vibrated until it skidded off the table and hit the floor, but she didn't dare look away from the thing unfolding out of the slit. Its body finished assembling itself, tall, thin, skin like polished obsidian wrapped in a faint, pulsing field of pale blue light. Where eyes should be, there were only two dim indentations, glowing faintly as if lit from behind. The hum returned. Not inside her head. This time the room vibrated with it, making the shelves rattle and the window frames tremble. She clamped her hands over her ears again, knees buckling as the pressure built inside her skull. The being tilted its head. The hum stopped instantly. Silence crashed into the room. Nora collapsed to her knees, gasping. The being stepped closer, every movement impossibly smooth. It raised one hand, palm open toward her, and the air thickened around her body. She felt her limbs lock, not with force, but with a gentle suggestion that her muscles simply agreed to stop obeying her. Her thoughts began slipping, not from panic, from intrusion. Images poured into her mind, blinding, rapid, uninvited, a star dissolving into a spiral of dark light. A chamber filled with floating crystalline shapes, each holding a suspended human memory. A planetary surface covered in obsidian towers that pulsed like living veins. Faces, hundreds of faces, staring upward into beams of white light. And herself lying on a table of liquid metal, her body glowing from within, her lungs seized, her vision blurred. Her heartbeat slowed as something inside her synapses was examined, mapped, memorized. The being leaned down until its face hovered inches from hers. She felt a ripple in the air like a silent exhale. A single, clear thought entered her mind. You were contacted early. You responded. The room imploded into white. When consciousness returned, she was lying on her bed, fully dressed, lights off, window open. Dawn was just starting to creep across the sky. Her phone buzzed beside her. One notification. No name, no number. Just a single phrase, the signal is now inside you. He was driving home long after midnight, too tired to care about the empty highway stretching in front of him. The road was a black ribbon twisting through the hills, the radio barely audible, his eyelids heavy enough to sting. Leo rubbed his face, trying to stay awake. The nearest town was 20 minutes away. His apartment 30. He told himself he'd make it. Then the world blinked. Not the lights, not the car, everything. The sky, the hills, the asphalt gone for a fraction of a second. A clean, surgical absence. When it returned, his car jerked, tires screeching as he fought the wheel. He pulled over hard, chest tight, pulse hammering inside his throat. The engine stalled. The headlights died. The radio cut to static. He sat frozen, staring into the darkness ahead. The night felt wrong, too still, too heavy, too aware. He reached for the ignition to try again. Then he saw it. A pale vertical line hanging in the air about 20 meters off the road. Thin at first, shimmering like a strand of silver hair floating in zero gravity. It grew longer, stretching upward and downward until it hovered like a glowing seam cut into the fabric of the night. Then it split open. A wedge of blinding blue light poured out, illuminating the highway in a cold, surgical glow. The asphalt turned reflective. The steel barrier hummed. Leo shielded his eyes, but the light wasn't blinding, it was analyzing. He felt it move across his skin, his bones, his memories. His breath caught. His chest tightened. His fingers wouldn't obey him. The light thickened into a column, swirling with patterns that moved too fast to follow. Shapes formed inside it, tall silhouettes, impossibly straight, shifting as if liquid and solid at the same time. One stepped forward. Its head brushed the top of the glowing seam, elongated and smooth, with no mouth, no nose, just two vertical slits where eyes should be. But those slits weren't dark. They were full of moving symbols, rotating and collapsing like tiny galaxies in fast forward. Leo tried to run, but his legs stayed rooted to the ground. He tried to scream, but the sound died in his throat. The entity raised an arm that stretched into perfect symmetry as it extended toward him. Then he felt it, a pull. Not physical, something deeper, grabbing the center of him, the part that wasn't body. His vision dimmed as his awareness stretched, like his mind was being peeled away from its anchor. The car behind him blurred. The road vanished. The world fell away like a dropped mask. He was no longer standing. He wasn't even sure he had a body. He floated inside a vast chamber shaped like a sphere cut into 1,000 hexagonal plates. Each plate flickered with moving images, people walking, sleeping, crying, staring into nothing. Thousands of lives projected at once. The air vibrated with a faint harmonic tone that seemed to pulse in sync with his heartbeat. Figures hovered around him, 3, maybe 4, tall and thin, each adjusting invisible controls with limbs that branched like liquid threads. They moved with perfect coordination, as if sharing a single thought. A bright filament descended from above and touched the center of Leo's chest. Instantly, his life unfolded in front of him, his first memory, his mother turning on the kitchen light. His first injury, falling off a bike at age 7. Every argument, every moment of loneliness, every small kindness he'd forgotten he ever did. They watched everything. Then the filament retracted and the being stepped back. He felt a question hit him, not spoken, not heard, but placed directly into the architecture of his mind. Are you stable enough? Before he could react, answer, or even process the meaning, the chamber collapsed into darkness. He woke up in the driver's seat, headlights on, engine running. The sun was rising in the distance. 5 hours had passed. His phone sat on the dashboard. A new file had appeared, no name, no extension, no sender. He opened it. White text on a black screen. You met the surveyors. Your evaluation is incomplete. She always loved storms. The sound of rain against the windows calmed her, and thunder felt like a reminder that the world was still alive. So when the sky cracked open with a sudden electric rumble at 3 in the morning, Selin didn't panic. She slipped out of bed, wrapped a thin blanket around her shoulders, and walked to the balcony to watch the storm roll in. But there was no storm, no rain, no wind, no clouds. Just a single pulse of white light frozen in the sky, hanging above the city like a camera flash that never fully faded. Her building's lights flickered. Street lamps below hummed with a faint vibration. Then she felt it, a subtle pressure behind her eyes, like someone pressing 2 fingers into the inside of her skull. She winced and grabbed the balcony railing. A second pulse hit, stronger, sharper. Her vision blurred, splitting into 2 layers, one showing the quiet night and the other showing something moving through it, something vast, angular, and silent, sliding between the buildings with impossible precision. When her vision snapped back into a single layer, the world was still again. But she wasn't alone. At the far corner of the balcony stood a shape, not a person, not a shadow. Something in between, tall, thin, legs too long, head slightly tilted as if studying her reaction. Its body gave off a faint, trembling outline like heat distortion. She couldn't see its face, but she felt its attention the way you feel electricity before a lightning strike. Selin stepped back, but her legs reacted a second too slow, like they weren't entirely hers. The entity moved, not forward, not closer. It simply appeared in a new position, no transition, no motion, just one moment far away and the next standing directly in front of her. A pressure formed in her throat, locking her breath. Her ears filled with a high-pitched ringing that vibrated her teeth. The blanket slipped from her shoulders. The entity raised one hand. The fingers split into thin branches of light, each one trembling like fibers exposed to static. They reached toward her temple, stopping just a centimeter away. The air between them rippled. Her thoughts shattered, not from fear, from intrusion. Images she had never seen exploded behind her eyes, a black ocean reflecting 3 moons, a corridor made of living metal breathing in slow waves, rows of suspended human shapes drifting weightlessly, each encased in a white cocoon that pulsed with faint light, a swirling mass of symbols, quiet, cold, mechanical, sorting through memories that weren't hers. Her knees buckled. The balcony floor dissolved beneath her, replaced by a surface she couldn't understand, smooth, warm, shifting like liquid trapped under glass. She stood inside a circular chamber with no walls, only a horizon of white light stretching outward, threaded with faint tendrils of color. Shapes watched her from the perimeter, not bodies, intent. Clusters of focused intelligence, like thought knots suspended in midair. One stepped forward, forming limbs and height only as much as necessary to imitate communication. A voice filled her, not in her ears, not in her mind, but in her sense of existing. You were audible before arrival. Her heart froze, her breath disappeared, her consciousness dimmed like a dying signal. The beings examined her silently, flickering in and out of form, each pulse rewriting the space around them. Then one extended a thread of light toward her chest. It touched her sternum gently. Her entire body locked. Light flooded through her veins. Her memories rearranged themselves like shuffled cards. Then darkness. When she opened her eyes, she was back in her bed. Blanket folded, phone charging, curtains open. She sat up slowly, shaking. The sky outside was calm, no pulse, no distortion. But on her wrist, a faint geometric mark glowed beneath the skin, like a 6-sided symbol slowly fading, as if whatever touched her had left its signature. Her phone lit up with a single new notification. No app, no sender, just plain text, "We hear you now." He woke to the feeling of someone standing beside his bed. Not a sound, not a shadow, just a presence like a weight pushing gently against the air. For a few seconds he didn't move, eyes half open, trying to convince himself it was just sleep paralysis. But his body responded normally. His hands moved. His chest rose. His breath came out shaky and real. The presence didn't fade. Irene slowly turned his head toward the doorway. There was nothing there. The apartment was dark, still, silent. The clock on the wall glowed 04:12. A faint breeze moved the curtains even though the windows were closed. He sat up, now wide awake, the back of his neck tingling with cold pins. Then the temperature dropped instantly, brutally, like someone had turned the world into glass. His breath misted in the air. The lights in the hallway flickered on by themselves, one by one. Click, click, click. Each bulb lighting up was too bright, too white, almost sterile. Irene swung his legs off the bed and stood, the wood floor freezing against his feet. He walked toward the hallway with slow, measured steps. Something deep in his brain told him he shouldn't go, but something deeper told him it didn't matter. Whatever was here already knew exactly where he was. Halfway down the hall, the lights cut out. Darkness swallowed everything. A low, vibrating hum seeped into the air, crawling along the walls, resonating up through the floorboards. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't electrical. It felt like it was coming from below reality, like something enormous was murmuring from a layer of the world humans weren't meant to hear. Irene reached for his phone. Before he touched it, the screen lit up on its own. A single phrase appeared: "Stay still." His fingers froze inches above the glass. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. A faint glow appeared down the hall. Not a bulb, not a reflection. A shape, soft at first like a haze, then clearer. A tall, upright silhouette moving with a rhythm too smooth to belong to anything human. Its outline shimmered with a faint metallic blue, edges bending as if made from liquid light. It approached slowly, soundlessly, the floorboards not creaking even once. Irene took one step back. The shape took three forward. He pressed against the wall, chest tightening, heart slamming against his ribs. The silhouette's limbs elongated as it drew closer, proportions adjusting, refining, like it was recalibrating itself to match him. When it stopped 2 meters away, the hallway lights exploded back on. He saw it clearly now. A humanoid figure nearly 2 meters tall, skin like polished stone covered in thin glowing lines that pulsed with each breath, if it even breathed. Its head was smooth, featureless except for 2 recessed indentations where eyes should be. Those indentations glowed faintly, swirling with geometric patterns that shifted like living equations. Its presence flooded the hallway. He felt it inside him, calm, cold, precise. The being raised its hand. The hum in the apartment grew sharper, drilling into his bones. His muscles seized, his jaw locked, his vision blurred around the edges. A beam of thin, silver light extended from the being's palm and touched the center of his forehead. Everything inside him opened. Not physically, conceptually. Thoughts, memories, fears, desires. Not reviewed individually, but all at once, like a library being scanned by a machine that understood every book simultaneously. Images flashed, him staring at the night sky as a child. The moment he almost drowned in the sea. The loneliness he never admitted. The dreams he forgot. The guilt he buried. The potential he didn't know he had. The beam retracted. Irene collapsed to his knees. His body shook violently as the being studied him in complete silence. Then it delivered a single message, not spoken, not written, but felt like a vibration behind his ribs. "You are applicable." Before he could react, answer, or even comprehend, the hallway bent around the being, like the walls folded inward, and the entity vanished in a single, silent implosion of blue light. The apartment warmed instantly. His phone chimed. A new file. No icon, no name. He opened it. A diagram appeared on the screen, 3 concentric circles filled with rotating symbols he couldn't decipher. Beneath them, in small white text, Phase 1 complete. She didn't remember falling asleep. Only that she was sitting at her desk, working late, the glow of her monitor reflecting off half-finished coffee, when her vision began drifting out of focus. One moment she was reading an email, the next her eyelids felt like they weighed a kilo each. She blinked hard, sat up straight, even slapped her cheek lightly. Nothing. The drowsiness was unnatural, heavy, forced. Then she woke on the floor, cold, dizzy, breathing shallow and uneven. The apartment was silent, but not a normal silence, an oppressive one, like the air itself was listening. Darya pushed herself up slowly, hands shaking as she reached for the side of the desk. Her monitor was still on, but the screen was wrong. The entire desktop had turned black except for a single pulsing white dot in the center. Blinking, slow, deliberate, she stepped toward it, each footfall unsteady. When she got close enough, the dot split into 2 perfectly symmetrical circles pulsing at the same rhythm as her heartbeat. Then the pulse changed. Not random, not visual, it synced with her skull. A sharp, needle-thin tone stabbed into her hearing, making her drop to her knees. She clutched her head, jaw clenched so hard her teeth hurt, but the tone didn't stop. It lowered in pitch, deepening until it wasn't sound anymore, it was something else. A pressure, a presence, something behind her monitor. The shadows on the wall peeled upward, pulling themselves away from gravity, rising like smoke in reverse. They gathered behind the desk, merging, thickening, taking shape. The temperature in the room plummeted, her breath fogged the air. She crawled backward, hands trembling uncontrollably. A figure stepped out of the shadow, tall, thin. No face, just a surface like smooth black marble carved into the suggestion of a head. Veins of faint purple light ran beneath its skin, branching in patterns that pulsed like electrical circuits. Durya tried to scream, but her voice came out silent, like the room swallowed the sound the moment it left her throat. The being moved without motion. One moment by the desk, the next kneeling right in front of her, its presence pressed against her mind with surgical precision. Her memories began slipping loose, not being taken, being accessed. A hand made of shadow and light extended toward her forehead. Its fingertips hovered just an inch from her skin. She felt heat radiating from them, soft, invasive, pulling her thoughts forward like a tide. Her mind opened. Images she had never seen poured in, a circular structure orbiting a dark star. Rows of beings standing in silent formation, their bodies lit by flowing symbols. A field of levitating stones arranged in a pattern that made her skull hurt to understand. A cluster of human silhouettes floating inside transparent pillars that hummed with low-frequency sound. Then her own face, reflected in a wall of polished alien metal, eyes glowing softly, marked with a symbol she didn't recognize. The being leaned closer. Its hand, still not touching her, sent a shock of freezing clarity through her consciousness. A message formed inside her head, shaped like a whisper made of math. You are synchronized. Her vision snapped white. The next thing she knew, she was lying on her couch, wrapped neatly in a blanket she hadn't touched. The monitor was off. The apartment was warm, and on her wrist, drawn in a faint ultraviolet glow, was the same geometric mark Selin had woken with the night before. Her phone buzzed. A new audio file. No name, no metadata, 3 seconds long. She pressed play. A single whisper echoed through the speaker, layered with metallic harmonics. Phase 2 begins with you. He felt the first sensation while brushing his teeth. A cold ripple behind his eyes, brief, sharp, like someone dragging a fingertip across the inside of his skull. He froze, toothbrush in midair, waiting for the dizziness to pass, but it didn't. The ripple spread down his spine, then vanished as fast as it came. Karam rinsed his mouth, shook his head, and tried to convince himself it was exhaustion. Long hours, bad sleep, too much caffeine. Then the bathroom light dimmed, not flickered, not buzzed. Dimmed, exactly 10% smoothly, as if commanded. He stared at the bulb. The bulb stared back with silence. His phone buzzed on the sink. When he picked it up, every app icon had vanished, replaced by a single blinking symbol, a 6-sided shape rotating slowly, glowing white. He tapped the screen. The symbol expanded, filling the display, pulsing like a heartbeat. Then the phone turned itself off. The apartment followed. Lights died. The fridge clicked silent. The hum of the city outside muted itself into nothing. Karam stepped back, heart pounding as a heavy pressure settled into the room. The same atmospheric weight as before a massive explosion, the air coiling inward like something enormous was inhaling. He whispered to himself, "This isn't happening." But it was. A vibration rolled through the apartment floor, strong enough to rattle his plates. The vibration turned into a low tone, then into something that almost, but not quite, resembled language. Patterns, cadences, structured pulses repeating at precise intervals. He knew without knowing how that it wasn't random. The hallway darkened first. A shadow formed, not cast by anything but condensing, thickening, pulling itself together like a cloud learning how to be solid. It stretched upward into a tall, narrow column that began splitting along the center, slowly, silently, revealing a figure inside. The figure stepped out. It wasn't humanoid at first. Its limbs seemed undecided, folding, unfolding, reconfiguring like a machine made of liquid glass. But with every step it grew more defined, hands forming from shifting strands, legs solidifying, a head surface smoothing into a faintly reflective mask. As it approached, the hallway elongated around it, stretching unnaturally, as if reality itself was trying to keep a safe distance. Karam backed into the bathroom door, breath shallow and shaking. "Please," he whispered, "don't." The being tilted its head. The lights came back, but not normal, not yellow, not warm. Everything turned the same color as the being's skin, cold, metallic, bluish silver. The walls shimmered, vibrating at microscopic speed. His reflection in the mirror behind him split into several layers, each moving half a second out of sync. He tried to run. His legs took one step, then stopped. Not from paralysis, something else. Something like the air thickened into syrup. The being reached out one arm, its fingers elongated, stretching into thin, luminescent filaments that hovered an inch from Karam's chest. The moment they aligned with his heartbeat, he felt his memories ripple like disturbed water. Not being read, being sorted, his childhood, his friendships, his fears, his empathy, his anger, his ambition, all cataloged in a single instant. Then the being's fingertips snapped into a new configuration, faster than a blink, and a shockwave of clarity ripped through his mind. His thoughts sharpened, rearranged, reorganized into patterns he didn't recognize but somehow understood were not human. He gasped, grabbing the counter for support. His heart was beating in perfect rhythm with the vibrating lights. His breathing synced to the being's presence. His mind shifted. The being leaned closer. No mouth moved. No sound was heard. But a message formed anyway, encoded directly into the architecture of his thought. "You are a node." His vision collapsed into black. He woke lying on the kitchen floor. Lights normal, phone charged, everything exactly where it should be. Except for one change. In the center of the living room, drawn with a thin glowing residue, was the exact same symbol from the night before, a rotating hexagon. But now the lines inside it had multiplied, branching like a map. A message was written beneath it in faint ultraviolet. "Phase 3 expects you." He noticed the first anomaly during his night shift. The security monitors, a wall of 12 screens, always showed the same boring loop of empty corridors, locked storage rooms, and silent stairwells. A dead building after midnight. Nothing ever moved, nothing ever changed, except tonight. At 02:17, camera 6 flickered. A single frame froze, then stretched. The hallway distorted like the lens was melting. The floor warped upward in a gentle ripple. The ceiling dipped as if something heavy pressed down from above. Sinan rubbed his eyes, leaning closer. The distortion sharpened, realigned, and then something tall swept across the frame, too fast to see clearly. He rewound the feed, played it frame by frame. There, between two static frames, a shape that shouldn't exist, too long, too slender, too bent. A silhouette composed of angles no human joint could form. He replayed it again. And again. On the 7th replay, the shape turned its head, its face, if it was a face, pressed directly against the camera. Sinan jerked backward, chair slamming into the wall. The feed went black. He checked the hallway lights from the control panel. Everything showed normal. But the building was not normal. The hum arrived 2 minutes later, a deep, vibrating frequency that made the steel desk tremble. His badge, hanging from his neck, began swinging slowly side to side. He held onto it, but the pulsing air around him made the chain slip through his fingers. Then the lights at the end of the security room flickered. One bulb, then two. Then the entire ceiling stuttered like a dying heartbeat. Sinan stood, breath shaking, every instinct in his body screaming at him to run, but the door behind him clicked, not locked, disabled. The magnetic latch refused to respond. He slammed his shoulder against it. Nothing. The hum deepened. The room vibrated. The monitors turned white. Then each screen filled with new footage, live but impossible. Every hallway in the building showed the same thing, a tall figure walking toward the security room. Not walking, gliding, its limbs folding behind it like articulated blades. He stumbled back from the monitors. No, no, no. Camera 3 showed it turning the corner. Camera 7 showed it approaching the stairwell. Camera 2 showed it descending the steps, joints bending like liquid metal. Camera 5 showed it stopping right outside the security room door. He stared at the door. The handle twisted on its own. Then the lights died. The room plunged into darkness. For a few seconds there was no sound, except the pounding in his skull, the pressure rising behind his eyes, the faint metallic taste in the back of his throat. A click echoed from the center of the room. Not the door, something else. A thin beam of white light ignited behind him, so bright it carved silhouettes of the furniture onto the walls. Sinan turned slowly. The figure stood beneath the beam. Its body was tall, impossibly smooth, coated in geometric reflections that shifted like liquid chrome. Symbols pulsed beneath its surface, faint, ordered, rhythmic. Its head tilted with slow, mechanical curiosity. He pressed against the wall, legs numb. The being raised one arm. A blade of light extended from its palm, thin, weightless, vibrating at a frequency that made his teeth ache. It reached toward his chest. The moment the light touched him, his memories detonated, not exploding outward, imploding inward. Scenes collapsed: childhood, first heartbreak, hands of his mother tying his shoes, the accident he never forgave himself for, all compressed into a single feeling, qualification. The being stepped closer. Sinan's heart raced, lungs clamped, vision dimming. The being's voice didn't arrive in sound. It arrived as a structural rewrite of his thoughts. Integration begins here. The room twisted sideways. Gravity snapped. Light folded. He fell through the floor, woke on the ground outside the building, lying on cold asphalt under a street lamp. But something was wrong. His left forearm glowed beneath the skin, thin geometric lines, arranged in a shape he'd seen only once before. The same hexagonal mapping Karam received, now expanded with additional branches. His phone buzzed in his pocket. One message. No sender. Phase 4 is your role. He woke to a sound he couldn't place, soft, distant, rhythmic, like a pulse echoing across kilometers of empty space. At first he thought it was coming from outside, maybe from the street below or the building's generator. But when he opened his eyes, the sound didn't just continue, it grew clearer. Too clear. It was coming from beneath his bed. Arda shot upright, heart hammering. The room was dark except for the faint glow of the router light across the hall. He leaned over the edge of the mattress, breath shaking, expecting he didn't know what. A broken pipe, a rodent, an appliance shorting out. He lifted the blanket. Silence. He lowered himself back onto the pillow. The pulse returned instantly, stronger now behind his ribs. He pressed his palm against his sternum. It wasn't the room making the sound. It was him. Before panic could fully form, the temperature in the bedroom plummeted. Frost formed along the windows in branching patterns that resembled fractal diagrams more than ice. The shadows around the edges of the room pulsed once, then lengthened like ink spreading through water. His phone vibrated on the nightstand. He reached for it. The moment his fingers touched the screen, the entire room tilted sideways. Not physically, perceptionally. Like someone had grabbed reality and rotated it a few degrees, just enough to break his brain's sense of up and down. The pulse in his chest quickened, sinking with a frequency he felt more than heard. Then came the light. A single beam, thin as a thread, descended from the ceiling, slicing through the darkness without illuminating anything else. The beam hovered directly above him, shimmering with microscopic symbols that rearranged themselves faster than he could blink. He tried to get out of bed. His body didn't move. Not paralyzed, redirected. Like his muscles received new instructions and ignored his old ones. The beam widened. Something began lowering through it. A sphere, smooth, matte, roughly the size of a human heart, descended in complete silence, held aloft by invisible mechanisms. Its surface shifted with faint geometric waves, symbols flowing across it like data streams. As it reached chest level, it stopped. Then it spoke. Not aloud, not telepathically, through the pulse in his chest. His heartbeat wasn't his anymore, it was messaging. Each thump formed a shape, each shape formed a sentence. You were detected first. He tried to scream. His throat moved. No sound came out. The sphere lowered until it hovered an inch above his sternum. He felt warmth radiating from it, soft but impossibly deep, as if it was heating not his skin but the void between his cells. The warmth became pressure. His vision blurred. and suddenly the room dissolved into a vast white plain. He floated weightlessly as towering monoliths materialized around him, structures of pure light stretching thousands of meters upward. Between them moved figures, tall, symmetrical, their forms oscillating between solid and luminous. One approached. Its face was a mask of shifting geometry. Its body rippled with pulses of alien code. It extended one hand toward him, and as it touched the sphere on his chest, everything inside him opened like a book. Every memory, every intention, every possibility reviewed, measured, sorted. Voices, hundreds, maybe thousands, whispered through him in layered harmonics, each one speaking a different fragment of the same verdict: convergence, alignment, progression. The sphere pulsed, embedding a cold white fire into his bloodstream. He gasped as visions erupted, planets folding into each other, beings stepping between dimensions like stepping through doors, vast networks of entities communicating through pure structure instead of language. He saw Earth from above, webbed with faint lines of energy he had never known existed, as if the entire planet was a node in an older, larger system. Then everything snapped back. He was in his room again, sweat-drenched, barely breathing. The sphere was inside his chest, not resting, integrated, its glow visible beneath his skin like a second heartbeat. His phone lit up on the nightstand. A message appeared: no sender, no timestamp, phase 5, you are the anchor point. Then a second line appeared slowly, like it was being typed by something that didn't understand typing: prepare for arrival. The lights in his room flickered. Then everything went silent. It happened in different cities at different hours, different lives, different fears, but the signal was always the same. They weren't testing anymore. They weren't hiding. They were choosing. He was a night janitor in a private research facility rumored to be shut down decades ago. Yet every night, the security gates opened for him. Lights flickered on one by one as if welcoming him, and machines hummed in distant floors with no staff present. He'd grown used to the oddness, the flickering cameras, the rooms that were always locked no matter what badge he swiped, the wing where the floor was cleaner than anything human hands could maintain. But on Tuesday night, the elevators went to level -6 on their own, a floor he never knew existed. The elevator doors slid open before he pressed anything. Cold air spilled out, not building cold, crypt cold. Air that felt like it hadn't circulated in years. He stepped inside, mostly because something behind him, something instinctive in the darkness of the hallway, pushed him forward with a fear humans evolved thousands of years ago. The elevator lights dimmed, then sank into a dull metallic haze. He descended. The floor numbers blinked: B2, B3, B4, B5. Then the panel shut off. The elevator jerked, slowed, and stopped with a heavy clunk. The doors opened into silence. A long corridor stretched ahead, illuminated by a faint blue glow that didn't come from the ceiling lights. They were dead. The walls were smooth metal, seamless, too modern for a building this old. A low vibration thrummed through the floor, echoing up his bones. He stepped out. Behind him, the elevator doors sealed shut and refused to open again. He walked forward. On both sides of the hall, thick glass panels began to appear, covered in dust and strange circular residue. Behind each glass room stood large, contorted shadows, tables, restraints, machinery shaped like surgical equipment, but designed by someone who didn't share human anatomy. Then he saw the cages. Not for animals, for something taller than humans. Empty now, but the bars were bent outward as if something had escaped. He kept walking, heart pounding. The corridor opened into a massive chamber, circular, cathedral-high, lit by a soft, pulsing light that flowed through veins in the walls like bioluminescent blood. In the center was a chair. Not a chair, an apparatus. A seat fused with a spine-like column coursing with moving glyphs. The material was metallic but alive, shifting like a slow heartbeat. He stepped closer, compelled by something he didn't understand. The chamber hummed louder with every step, responding to him. When he reached the center, the apparatus unlocked with a gentle cracking sound, its rib-like arms opening outward in invitation. A whisper brushed the inside of his skull. "Sit." He staggered backward. The whisper followed. "Sit." His vision blurred around the edges. His legs felt elastic, unsteady. His pulse synced to the hum of the room. A pressure built behind his eyes like someone pushing their fingers into his thoughts. He couldn't fight it. He sat. Immediately, the rib-like arms closed around him with quiet, fluid precision, not restricting, adjusting, aligning his spine, tilting his head, positioning his limbs in angles that felt anciently correct. A metallic probe extended from the base, stopping inches from his chest. Symbols lit across it, shifting, spinning, rewriting themselves. Then it struck. Not physically. The blow was internal. His mind ruptured open. His vision flooded with impossible images, a desert under 3 suns, a cavern of organic machinery breathing like lungs, a ship the size of a city emerging from a river of metallic liquid, rows of beings taller than humans, their skin crystalline, their eyes glowing with contained storms, a constellation rearranging itself into a map, a star collapsing into a geometric core of black light. Then he saw Earth. From orbit, cold, small, marked. The probe extended deeper, not touching him but touching his thoughts, threading through memories like a needle passing through cloth. It tugged, stitched, rewired, extracted. He convulsed. His childhood shattered into shards, his hopes dissolved. His past was carved apart and reorganized to fit a pattern he couldn't comprehend. He tried to scream. The apparatus muted the sound before it reached his throat. Another vision bloomed, a colossal dark shape descending through a storm. A city's power grid collapsing. People frozen in time as something scanned them. A network of hidden chambers beneath continents activating in unison. The probe retracted. The rib-like arms opened. He collapsed to the metal floor, gasping, eyes streaming. He was no longer rewired. He was reassigned. The chamber dimmed. The hum softened. A voice, calm, ancient, mechanical, organic, spoke inside him. You will prepare them. You will guide the activation. You are the 6th. His heart nearly stopped. The lights flickered, then went out. He sprinted down the corridor in total darkness, the vibration of the chamber echoing through his bones. When he reached the elevator, its doors opened automatically, waiting. He rode back up in silence, collapsed against the wall. When dawn arrived, he returned home, but the world didn't feel like the world anymore. He could hear signals buried beneath city noise. He could sense electrical currents in walls. He could feel something counting down behind his ribs. Something inside him had woken. And somewhere deep under the earth, the other 5 had woken too. And if you reach the end of these 10 stories, they've already noticed you.